Greetings, enlightened ones, and thank you for joining your Reverend today. In today's video, we're going to be going over my thoughts and opinions on the goth scene in 2025. So this video is going to be kind of like a continuation to my previous video, which was over 5 years ago. It's hard to believe, but I think it's actually coming up on 6 now. So, I mean, that's a 5-year difference right there. So I was about 25 when I had made that video, probably 24 going on 25. And so in that video, I kind of talked about toxicity, politics, elitism, that kind of thing that was kind of plaguing the alternative scene, goth scene, whatever you want to call it. It was a very well received video where people were actually starting to comment to me back, feeling the same way, to my surprise. I honestly thought I was the only one alone on this, but it actually turns out there are other people like me that have felt the same way and had commented and shared their same experiences. Within those 5 years, I honestly haven't really been that much into the scene. As I age, as I grow up, honestly, I felt like it's just a thing that I've left in my 20s now, since I am now going on 30 here within a month. I just don't really seem to care for much for the scene, and I'll explain why. I've always been a part of the goth scene, I would say, since literally my upbringing. My mother used to always play alternative 80s, not necessarily goth, but same with my dad. I mean, he played more metal, but my mother was the biggest influence when it came to music. I actually hated a lot of the music she played when I was younger, all the 80s stuff, and then it just grew on me. By the time 2012, about 2011, 2012 hit, that's when I discovered myself as a person, and I realized that goth was definitely something that is a part of me in terms of my personality. I've always been said that I'm an old soul, and I guess I've kind of lived up to that now, in realizing that I feel like I am not of this world because of the talking points that I even am going to mention here, and at least the way that I perceive things and the way I look at things, look at people. I feel like I'm in a time where I shouldn't even be here. But yeah, my parents were goth in the 90s. They were part of the romantic goth era, if you want to call it that. I think I'll actually have a separate video because I do have pictures of my dad from when he was a teenager in the goth scene from the 90s, and he went to Evergreen Cemetery out there in downtown Riverside in California and took those pictures. So eventually I think I'm going to show those pictures, but that's probably going to be for a separate video. To tell you how much I really just don't give a shit about the scene anymore, my hair dye literally says everything. It says the whole entire story. You can't really see it on camera, but literally my roots have been growing in, and I honestly have not really cared to dye my hair. More and more every day, I'm actually abandoning the scene, and what I mean by that is I'm not really giving a shit about going out anymore. As I age, I really just value my own time now. Do these hobbies like YouTube or my car outside to where I'd just rather be a shut-in. I've gotten so burned by the alternative scene that I really just am not invested as much as I used to be when I was in my early 20s. I've gone out less and less. I mean, hell, even for 2025, I haven't even gone to a club yet. I think I may have went to one club last year. Maybe once or twice I went out last year. I don't even really recall. I did see Twin Tribes last year, along with the Chameleons. They played at like the White Oak Music Hall out here out in Houston, but even then, I really don't even care to go out to concerts much anymore. The only regret that I do have in saying that, though, is I didn't see Skinny Puppy's last tour, since it was their last tour, I think for 2024 or 2023, I can't remember. But yeah, since I've been out in Houston, much hasn't really changed how I feel about the scene. So we're in 2025, right? So if you guys recall, I am actually from California, Riverside to be exact. So I'm from Southern California. So for some of you California folk out there, I used to go to clubs out in LA, out in Riverside, and much to my surprise, I didn't really care for any of them much at all. I used to go to Bar Sinister, which was one of the most popular ones. Honestly, I wouldn't really call it a goth club. I'd call it more of a poser club for people that want to dress up in black on Friday night, Saturday night. Honestly, my one favorite, well, what used to be one of my decently favorite clubs that I used to go to was actually what was known as Cemetery Gates, that is now known as Club Dominion, now in Riverside, California, downtown Riverside to be exact. To my understanding, they play on Thursday nights. They generally played pretty decent stuff, which was pretty surprising considering most of the LA clubs played the same overplayed shit, which is one of the reasons why I don't really care to go out anymore, is because the music is just so bad. Whoever DJs usually always spins the same fucking Sisters of Mercy song or Cure song every fucking Friday night, and it gets pretty irritating to listen to the same thing. I'm one of those guys that actually listens to a lot of newer newer artists for that matter. I listen to some of these newer indie artists that are coming out, like Twin Tribes. Soft Vein is actually just another one that I just got into that I recently discovered. You even have Brandy Kills. That one's super underground. That's probably one of my favorite darkwave bands. But I digress. I wish DJs would actually play a little bit more of the newer side of the alternative scene, but they always stick to playing what's safe, and that's one of the major reasons why I don't even go out anymore. One of the contributing ones in any way. The music is just so bad in all of the clubs, and they always play the same shit. When I came from California, I moved out here to Houston, and I saw the same music being played. I mean, it was a little bit better, don't get me wrong. Some of the DJs out here actually played pretty decent stuff. When I moved out to Houston, though, the music scene was actually generally a lot better, though. To my surprise, a lot of the DJs, I used to go to Etro every Thursday night before they shut down their Goth thing, and now it's actually moved over to some other club. I think it's like the Black Magic Club or something like that. It's called Ritual. I've never been yet. I just haven't really found the time to even check it out, but there are a few goth clubs out here in Houston, but there really isn't that many. I used to go to Etro when they were doing their goth nights out there, and they were generally pretty good. A lot of the DJs that I've met there actually spun some pretty good stuff, and I eventually got my foot in the door, and I wanted to play. I wanted to spin music. I'm not too familiar with, you know, DJ software and all that kind of stuff, so obviously I know how to get my setup working, but plugging it all up is another story. I haven't done this enough to really be experienced in mixing and all that kind of shit. When it comes to the goth stuff, like, you really don't need to mix a lot of the music. You just need to make sure that your highs and your lows sound good and the bass sounds decent for whatever track it is you're trying to play. At least in my opinion. I like I said, I'm not a big sound audiophile or whatever you want to call that kind of person, but when I DJ'd there, it was a pretty nice night. I actually had a lot of people asking me what song was that, you know, and recommendations and things like that. So I know what to play because I have a fine ear for a good alternative music. But yes, I got to DJ at least one time at Etro, and I wanted to DJ again to get my foot in the door. However, unfortunately, I never got another opportunity. And I think the reason for it is because I don't play what's safe. This is just pure speculation, mind you. But obviously, the bar needs to make money, right? The problem is it's already, this club is playing on a Thursday night, so there's not a whole lot of people that are going to want to go out on a work day anyways. So you did have a lot of these normie people thinking it was like their 80s nights that they have, and they would come in here kind of looking like, what the fuck is this kind of music? And sometimes you have to play and cater to them to keep the bar fed and keep everybody paid, right? So sometimes you have to sneak in a fucking Depeche Mode song or, you know, Friday I'm in Love bullshit song in there or something to keep them appeased. But I wasn't about that. I wanted to play what I wanted to play. My way was, well, we can bring more people in if I just make a name for myself and actually manage to spin better music. Then sorry, some of you guys, because your music is just not as good as some of the shit that I have. I'm not fucking tooting my own horn, but I usually have a generally good ear for decent music when it comes to the alternative scene. I don't play overplayed shit by any means. That's just kind of why I think I never got another opportunity. It was because they felt threatened by me. I don't know. At any rate, Numbers is probably one of the biggest clubs out here in Houston. Numbers nightclub. They have what they call as the Underworld nights. They, funny enough, those nights are hardly goth. Honestly, their more goth nights are probably going to be their classic Numbers nights, which I think are on Fridays. Usually they're underground nights. They play literally just EBM dog shit, where it's just fucking repetitive beats and noises all night for the drunk retards that come in there. They'll generally play goth from like 9 o'clock to 10 p.m. Once the collective comes in, the music completely 180s. It shifts from being goth from 9 to 10 o'clock to EBM dog shit noise just to appease the crowd once they start getting intoxicated. So at that time, that's usually when it's just time to leave. Once 10 o'clock hits, it's literally like nothing but noise, EBM synthetic noise. And I can't stand EBM. I'm sorry, there's some people that like EBM. I don't like it personally. It's just a bunch of noise and it doesn't sound like anything but dog shit to me. Personally, myself, I've always been an advocate for dark wave. Dark wave, just I relate to it much more. I've had a dark history in my life, so and a lot of dark wave has a lot of, the name implies, has a lot of darker lyrics to it. So that's my choice to spin. Honestly, when I'm DJing, I like to play a lot of dark wave. It's easily danceable too. Lyrics are powerful. There's a lot of good artists out there that produce dark wave, and that's just my go-to personally. But yes, I met a lot of people out here in Houston whom honestly were just kind of weirdos. Not necessarily the same type that I met in California. They just didn't rub me the right way. Literally, I seen people at like Numbers wearing some of the most obnoxious clothing. Like, I seen a dude literally wear like almost a jock strap. The alternative scene has some of the most creepiest people in it, and that's also the reason why I don't really care for it. The way people dress in the scene is really wild to me. When it comes to people dressing, this is kind of why I don't really feel passionate about the scene anymore, because other people they're not really as invested as I am into it. If it ain't the music, it's the way people dress and kind of carry themselves. I'll just go with the men first, right? I don't want to pick on the women just yet, but we'll get there. The men, they're very boring. They don't really, I'm not saying the goth scene you have to dress up, you have to wear like a fucking Halloween costume, but my god, dude, like the men just kind of look like they came out of work and they didn't look like they even gave a shit. And I wouldn't call them men, they're honestly little boys. It's a lot of the people that get into the scene, they're actually more teenage, even though they're in their 20s. They're not really, they don't dress like, dressing up that says their personality, I guess the best way to put it. Putting a little bit of effort of who you are as a person and how you present yourself into the scene. A lot of people don't do that. They don't seem to have any sort of creativity. I'm not saying I'm the best when I dress up, but like shit like this, like I've actually not worn this yet. I've bought this Reverend getup to actually go out eventually, and I wanted to wear this out in public. I mean, I'm gonna be a little more fixed up and dressed up than how you see me here, right? I bought this to go out because I wanted to be different. I wanted to be like a goth Reverend type of persona or something, going out dancing. That's kind of what I wanted to do, wearing like a crazy looking cool top hat. But the dudes, they just look like they're just normies. Like they don't try. And the women, yeah, they try. But the girls, honestly, this is why finding even relationships with these people, a lot of them are just boring. The people that get into the scene are just boring people, or they're weirdos, what have you. The chicks all dress up like this trad goth look. Trad goth is like the biggest thing out right now, it seems like, within the scene, and almost every woman just dresses up like the trad goth look, which gets very boring, at least for, if I wasn't seeing my woman right now, and as a single male, I don't care to see a woman that looks like everybody else. I don't like cookie cutter women. I want a woman that actually dresses up and has her own personality behind it, no different from a man, right? I mean, I'm not bisexual, but what I'm trying to get at is if I'm looking to get into a relationship or try to talk to a woman, I want that chick to actually have a sense of style to her. But a lot of these girls literally look like clone troopers from fucking Star Wars. They all copy each other. They all look the same. They have the same makeup. Most average men aren't gonna give a shit, but for someone like me, I give a shit. I want a woman that actually knows how to dress and has a sense of like creative freedom behind what she's doing. Her makeup's different, the way she carries herself, the way she dresses. That shit's more of a turn on than looking like everybody else. Before I met my woman, I actually was seeing a lot of these girls, and I don't generally go up to women. I let women come up to me. I just, as I've gotten older, and I say this a lot as I age, as I've gotten older, I don't have time. I don't have time to play games. I don't have time to fuck around. Like, if you are generally interested in me, then I'll have you come up to me. Otherwise, I'm just gonna sit alone, enjoy myself, enjoy my time, and have a drink by myself and people watch. That's pretty much what happens when I go out to a club by myself. I generally just do not care. There have been very small instances where a woman attracts my eye, intrigues me, whatever it may be, right? And I decide to talk to him or whatever. At least one situation in Houston. This chick, and this is why dating in the goth scene, like, this is almost like for its own video, honestly, but I'll just kind of briefly brush up on it. If you're trying to find a relationship in the alternative scene, it is 9 times out of 10 genuine. Let me rephrase that. If you are looking for a genuine relationship in the goth scene, it will not happen. There are so many broken and damaged people within the alternative scene that you will not find somebody that is gonna be compatible if you are a relatively normal individual. I'm sure shit not in fucking normal. I have much trauma. I've already went over all of my traumas that I've had in my life. What I do want to think is that most of the trauma that I have experienced in my life has actually been somewhat of a curse and a gift at the same time of making me a decent, normal human being somehow, where I'm not like the rest of everybody else, as isolating as it may be. There's one chick, I literally asked her out here in Houston. This was quite a couple of years back now, and something attracted my eye to her, and I was like, you know, I just told her, I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know. She was coming out of the bathroom, and I was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know you're a very attractive woman. I just thought I should let you know. That's it. That's all I said. And then she pulls me over to the side, and we talk at the bar. Here's the thing about me too. I usually lay out a little bit of my baggage onto people to see how they react, to see if they're even worth my time. And let me explain before you start getting pissed off at me, like, well, how do you expect anybody to want to even talk to you when you just sound like a red flag? Again, I don't fuck around. I don't play games. I want to see if you're actually willing to accept the baggage that I have, because if you can't accept me for who I am, then you're not worth my time at all. So sometimes when I'm talking to people, I kind of not really get into politics per se, but kind of give my opinions on things that are related to the same subjects that we're talking about. You know, I try to let them know who I am as a person, essentially, not necessarily trying to give out red flags, but to see how they react to it, because a lot of the people in the alternative scene are usually Democrat and they're usually liberal, and so if you lean a certain way that's not that way, then they will usually ostracize you, and you are the black sheep of the crowd, so to speak. Mind you, I'm not Republican. I'm actually more of a fence sitter / neutralist, or whatever you want to call me. I honestly, I'm so much more smarter than the two-party system. I'm way beyond that hill now that I don't really give a shit about either parties, because I'm just smarter than that. I don't remember everything that was said, but she still seemed genuinely interested in me to the point where we went home. And to tell you how naive I am, right? This is kind of what I'm telling you about how people are kind of weird, but then I guess I'm one to talk because I went home with this chick thinking that we were going to get to know each other a lot better, which probably should have been a red flag for me. But again, I'm a bit naive myself, because I think not the worst of people, I guess, so to speak. So this woman wanted me to go home with her, and I wasn't looking to have sex. I wasn't looking to fuck. I actually just wanted to get to know her. I'm not looking to fuck. I'm not like everybody else. I really don't want to have sex with everybody I meet the first day, like everybody else in the alternative scene. I would much rather try to get to know people and see if they're even worth my time, as I've mentioned. So we went home or went to her house or whatever. She explained to me she has a kid, blah, blah, blah. Her kid wasn't there, but we were just talking. And, you know, I told her a little bit about my story, the traumas that I had. You know, I said how I grew up, essentially, where I come from. And my chick literally tells me when I tell her this story, she's like, yeah, she was looking to fuck. She wasn't looking for an actual committed relationship or really to get to know you, right? So she took me home and we talked, right? And then maybe some time goes by, maybe like an hour and a half goes by. And then she's like, hey, I'll just give me a minute. I'm going to go change in the other room. Totally oblivious, but that was more than likely probably a cue as to like, hey, join me in the bedroom, let's fuck type of thing, right? And I totally went over my head, because I'm telling you, I'm naive. I don't want to fuck people just like that. I don't want to. That's not how I communicate with people and how I get to know people. So I don't think like that. So probably like 10 minutes goes by, and then she finally comes out and she's fully dressed and stuff like that. And to me, I think that was probably a cue. Like I said, I don't know. But this is kind of what I'm talking about with people in the scene, is a lot of them honestly are like sexual deviants. Most of them just want to have sex. Like, the amount of weird shit that I see at the clubs too, how people just grind up on each other. It's almost like a booty bar club. I really just don't get it. It's just such a turnoff. Like, I really don't go to a club to have sex with everybody and everyone. It's almost like a big orgy, right? Like, I don't get it. I really don't. But people use the scene as a way to just pick up. If that's your thing, whatever. but it's really just gross, and I really just don't care for it. I would much rather want to get to know somebody and then eventually get to that point versus straight up just having a one-night stand and being done with it. But yeah, that's my thoughts and opinions on the goth scene in 2025, at least from that previous video and how I felt about it now here out in Texas. I haven't completely fully abandoned it per se, but as I get older, as I've now gotten into my 30s, I just really don't care for it much though. And don't get me wrong, I do like to still go out and dance. Dancing is one of the one things that I feel like I'm liberated. I have like some weird freedom. It feels like a detoxification of the soul, so to speak. I really generally like dancing to goth music, the alternative scene, and getting on the floor. It's one thing that does kind of feel like it's a healthy thing to do. It's almost like a ritual for me. If you're going to be spinning the same music, why bother? If the people are just toxic in general, why bother? I'd much rather just sit at home and just talk with my woman or play games or do some other hobby than it would be to just go out and have a dance with some weird person or get to meet some other weirdo that you thought was a genuine person but ends up just being another weirdo, you know, like, it's just not worth it. The goth scene in 2025 is just not worth it when the people, and it's not just the goth scene, it's every aspect of life. People are just weird. They're not genuine people. It's like you're surrounded by a bunch of NPCs, right? So I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel about it in terms of 2025. Much of the opinions from my previous video haven't really changed much, but I really just don't care. I don't know how else to say it. If you guys have a differing opinion, do let me know, because I still am generally interested in how you guys feel about the goth scene, but for me personally, there's just not much left for it for me. Like I said, I still listen to the music. As I'm going on my way to work, I still listen to goth music. Like, it's my go-to. Like, it's not something that, you know, I just steered away from, right? You guys have a good rest of your day, and let's get ready for the work week. Peace out.